Hello, dear friends. Patrick here. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2024. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. I hope God is blessing you in all things. Today, the temperature right now is about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, around 12, 13 degrees Celsius. It is just a beautiful, beautiful sunny fall day, a few scattered clouds. And this morning, it was really chilly, like around 5 degrees Celsius. So it's warmed up really nicely. Today, I chose as my topic Christianity in self-destruct mode. And this is part one, how I got canceled from a Christian church. Now, when I put pen to paper and started to try and look into the future for this particular series that I'm going to do, because I know that I can't get through it all in part one, I didn't see an endpoint. So that kind of spooked me a little bit, but we'll see how far we can take this, and this might be off into the horizon, as they say. We'll see, but we will see. So first of all, I want to set the stage for you. This past Sunday, I was getting ready to attend my local church, and I thought I would zip on the live stream of the former church I used to attend. And I was listening to the sermon. I had about, I don't know, I think I might have had a half hour to spare. I think I might have caught 15, 20 minutes of it. But that was more than enough. And I'll tell you why. As I'm listening to the sermon and the preacher is expounding upon the gods of ancient civilizations, I listened to a few minutes of it, and I said in the comments, they have a place for comments, I said, what the heck am I listening to? And of course I was biting my tongue. If you know me personally, you'll know that I was biting my tongue. And it kept going and going and going and going, and about this God and that God and this ancient, what they believed and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, is this a Christian church? What's going on, right? And, you know, I know that he's going to reach a point eventually. But maybe I was short on time and I was frustrated. And so I said, you know, this might be of interest to a student. I said an undergraduate student, and somebody said I was being condescending. Doesn't matter what kind of student, high school student, undergrad, college student. I said it might be interesting to them to get credit for some ancient civilizations 101. But with the current state of the world that we are facing today, is this really beneficial? Now, I wish I had saved that original text that I wrote, the comments that I wrote. I wrote 2 or 3 comments basically deriding the pastor, denigrating what he was saying, and being generally nasty, malicious, and cranky towards what I was listening to. And I believe for good reason. Sunday morning, you know, getting ready for church, and I have to listen to this crap. And so be that as it may, someone responded, buddy that I know, and it said, you know, that was ignorant and condescending. And I said, it wasn't ignorant. I said, it might have been a bit condescending, but in any case, I did manage to save my last reply before I was canceled. You see, after I made my last reply, I was blocked from that Facebook page. So I was, as far as I know, all my posts were deleted, and I can no longer access that Facebook page of that particular church that I used to attend. One of the largest Protestant churches in the city that I used to live in. It's no slouch. They could probably fit 1,000 people minimum in there, maybe 2,000. It's one of those semi-pseudo mega churches, and I'll talk about that in a second. Anyway, I got to keep close watch on the time because I'm going to try and respect your time, and we're already at 4 minutes. So they said, oh, you're being decisive. You're divisive. Sorry, you're being divisive, right? Why be so divisive? And my last reply was, I'll just read it to you quickly, but I'll put it in the notes underneath this video so you can read it to see if this deserved to be canceled from a Christian church or not. I said, indeed, I am one pushing for a divide, hoping to push anyone, Christian or not, away from passive, navel-gazing, insulated teaching as was displayed on Sunday. 2, speaking out against the indoctrination that is being openly advocated in public schools towards toddlers, grade 3 students, for example. And I do have an example of that if anybody wanted to ask, but anyway. I want to push people towards speaking out against Christian churches being burned down on a regular basis. That's what Reports are coming in as occurring. That's what we're seeing in videos, photographs. I want to push people towards being aware of corporate and government corruption. I'm currently reading a book on a large corporation that is part of oligopoly in the agribusiness, and that's quite interesting. Anyway, but we know that corruption is rampant today. We've advanced in many different areas of the world: technology, healthcare, communications, transportation. Many areas we're advancing as a civilization, except morality. Corruption is running rampant, and that's cause for concern. Only interesting to undergraduate students because they're forced to listen to such trivia for credit. Ignorant, no. Condescending, maybe. So be it. I will continue to be negative towards and belittle Christian leaders for as long as they continue to promote obedience to the state through silence and inaction, and as long as they turn a blind eye to the evil and corruption that is running rampant. Leave the unpacking of the Babylonians to the MA and theology students so they can be trained to be completely useless functionaries for the various denominations. In the meantime, give the people that are hungry something to eat. This is what I was hoping. I was hoping to drop in and get something to eat. And they might say, well, you know what? You don't have to come to our church. We're a fast food church here. You come in, and if you don't like it, go somewhere else. And if you don't like it, we reserve the right not to serve you, which is fair enough. I can see that argument, fine. But at least it would have been nice if they would have told me that. If they would have said, you know what, we don't like your attitude, you're canceled, you're too divisive. That would have been kind of nice, actually. But instead, nothing. No response, no reply. The only reply I got was from, I'm assuming, another Christian person, another Christian lay person like myself, who didn't like what I had to say. And so, there you go. I was canceled. And so, this is what I want to talk about, because the gauntlet has been thrown down. Hey, shh, quiet. Sophie, come here. Sophie, come here. Sorry about that. Come on. Come. There's nothing there. She gets a little excited over there. I apologize. Maybe I can edit that out later. So let's get through what I was hoping to talk about today. I just made a few notes, and just to talk about, and I think maybe I will start by letting you know the dynamics of this church, because it's common in a lot of, especially these kind of more mega churches. They've been largely influenced by various different, Schuller, Oral Roberts. There's a number that have been very influential, even people like Copeland for that matter. But one of the biggest influences, I believe, is by a fellow by the name of Rick Warren, who wrote a mega bestseller called The Purpose-Driven Life. That's pretty much on every Christian bookshelf across North America. Sold a gazillion copies next to the Bible. But this one, interesting enough, is called The Purpose-Driven Church, right? And this was published in mid-1970s, the first printing, and then again in 79, and then I believe the final printing was in 1984. Growth without compromising your message and mission. So this is targeted to Christian leaders, right? The Purpose-Driven Church. And I'm going to have to do a separate video series on this one of these days. Maybe I can do it in a video or two. Maybe I can squeeze it into a single video to cover some of the elements of this book that are repulsive. Is probably a good word, I suppose. Yeah. And the main model that this church espouses, that this famous Christian leader advocates, is this circle of various Christians. Here, if I can just pull it up for you quickly, I'm sure I can find it. I may have to edit this video to get rid of this long dead air space, so I apologize. Here we go. Okay, so here's the image that is used. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm going to just show that to you, right? The target of how they work. They have the circle, and on the outer circle is the unchurched community, and then you have the crowd, and then you have the congregation in the inner circle, and then you have the committed, right? It keeps getting smaller and smaller, and then you have the core Christians at the very center. Pardon me. And the core Christians are the ones that Rick Warren says are the most important Christians. These are the Christians that will give all of their resources, all of their time. They'll work for free. They will tithe at the minimum 10% or more and above that. They are totally dedicated to that particular church that they attend. And this is what Rick Warren says you should be striving to get. You want to get these core Christians. Well, I hate to tell you, but there's going to be another outer circle. There's going to be another outer circle of which I'm a part, and that is the banned Christians. And that outer circle is going to start to grow larger and larger. And you say, oh, you're causing division. You're promoting division. I'm not promoting division. I'm just telling you that division is happening. Why? Because they are against me. Christ is in me, so they are against Christ, right? I am against them in the sense that I didn't come to send peace, but a sword, to division. 2 against 3, 3 against 2. This is division as per what Jesus talked about, right? And you can look up that scripture if you like. Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace, but division. Now, of course, Jesus was talking more about the division between believers and non-believers. But this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the division between those that want to believe and see and acknowledge and fight against evil and those that don't. We're seeing division between those that are willing to seek out truth and not afraid to speak it, and those that will not. And that division is going to grow larger and larger. But anyway, this book has been extremely influential. In fact, the church that I was canceled from, the church that I was essentially banned from, used this exact image in one of their sermons way back when I used to attend there. They put that up on the screen and said, this is how we're going to do it, right? We've got this community, these people that are just mildly interested on the outside. Then we're going to draw them into this crowd, and then we're going to get them committed, and then we're going to get them, more and more until we finally get this core, divine, perfect Christian that gives us everything that we want, that we can suck the life out of them. That's essentially what they're saying. That's essentially what Rick Warren is saying. And in fact, just to add a little cherry on top, he even includes a picture. Can you believe that he actually had no shame in publishing this in 1984, and it was hugely popular at the time? Our target, he said, even include an image of his ideal Christian. Our target called him Saddleback Sam. His church was Saddleback Church, a huge mega church in California, right? Saddleback Sam. And he gives a picture of this middle-class white guy with the cell phone and the khaki pants, and just the stereotype of stereotypes, which I'll talk about later, but I don't have time to get into that right now because it's so pathetic. It deserves its own video, and there's other things I'd like to talk about in that too. But let's just try and see if I can get through the notes that I took down for this particular video. I'm already running low on time. So how does it work? How does the Christian churches today operate? You see, this method served them well when there was no shitstorm going on in the world. Pardon my French. But when everything was peaceful in 1950s, Pollyanna, leave it to Beaver, then maybe that was, you could have worse strategies. Worked for him, made him a ton of money, influence, and power. And whether they were good stewards of it or not, that's between them and God, I suppose, right? Pardon me. Still got a little bit of sleep in my eye for some reason, even at this hour. And but times are changing, as I'm saying. If I'm getting canceled out of the Christian church, then there's something going on. Absolutely something going on. And because I highly doubt I'm the only one that's getting booted out and saying, no, we don't want your type in here. We want to maintain the status quo. We don't want to talk about anything that's going on in the world. And they use 2 methods of preaching that are their bread and butter, and I'm going to explain them in a second. First, I'd like to just delineate quickly between Catholics and Protestants, because I know I have some viewers that are Catholic. God bless you, because the Catholics are following their formula that works for them, and they're highly successful at it. They basically use guilt as a strategy, penance. Their whole, raison d'être is kind of penance oriented. You go to church, you go to mass to relieve your conscience. If you've been out partying on a Saturday night, you got to go to mass to make sure that you're all okay again. Or say a rosary, penance, go to confession, penance, go to mass, penance. Even if you only go at Easter and Christmas, it's still a type of penance. And they use that, they sell indulgences back in the Middle Ages. They're still selling indulgences. They're just different, packaged differently. And they're highly successful at that. And I got nothing against Catholics. God bless them, because they're smart. As I mentioned in a previous video, they have their own banking system, and they have the Vatican, their own place of a home base, if you want to call it, a nation state that is theirs. And so there will always be the strongest Christian denomination, as far as I'm concerned, until somebody in the Protestant denomination wakes up and says, hey, you know what? We need a banking system that's based on the instructions Jesus gave the Levites. Yeah, that would actually work. A flat 20%. Yeah, that would be something that would bless the children of God, wouldn't it? But they'll never do that. Why? Because they have their ulterior motive on how they manage their money, and they use it for their salaries, and whatever pittance is left over, they'll give to the poor or send overseas or something. But I'll talk about that later. Whereas that's a Catholic. So God bless the Catholics. I'm not talking about the Catholics in this video. I'd like to talk more about the Protestant angle. Oh no, get off my Java. The wasp trying to drink my Java. I'm sorry, pardon me for drinking. I got to get through this quickly. I've only got a couple of minutes left. The Protestant strategy, two main strategies for their preaching system that I've found that are common amongst different individual churches within the Protestant and especially evangelical denominations, to put it that way, is they want to target their message as if they were speaking to the mentally retarded. And I don't mean that in a negative slur sense at all. I mean actually really people that their minds have been retarded by exposure to the mainstream media, things like Netflix or CNN, Fox News, you name it. The main news that they're being exposed to has decimated their capacity for independent thought. I don't have cable. I don't have television. How do I get my news? From people that I know or from firsthand experience, right? People that I know online will say, hey, look, this is where I am. I'm in Ottawa. This is what I see what's happening. The other day I was at months ago, I was at a meeting where Pierre Poilievre showed up to speak. I was there. I took video. I shared it amongst my social media circle. Oh, you depend on social media. That's full of misinformation and conspiracy theory. Yeah, okay. All right. I'll deal with that in another video, okay? But just to put it mildly, I don't listen to mainstream media, period. CTV, CBC, the Communist Broadcasting Corporation, all that. It's all crap, right? So that's one method. They want to use the lowest common denominator, so they'll speak to somebody as if they have the mind of a 7 or 8 year old, right? They're talking to somebody who's a toddler, maybe grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 kind of message. Second method that they use is this slow, long exposition. And this is the one that really gets me, because I can deal with the first one. I realized I have to speak at the lowest common denominator because there's a lot of biblical principles that you need to accept with childlike faith. So I kind of get the parallel, and I can give that a slide because I sit and I endure it, right? I know they're talking about the Good Samaritan again and the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. I get it. You got to have faith like a child, and so they talk to you like you're a child. That's fine. In moderation, I can accept that. But the second one, I'll tell you why I have a hard time with the second one. The second one is the slow, long exposition. And that's what this guy was doing on Sunday. The preacher was going on and on and on about ancient gods from ancient civilizations. And I know he probably had a point to it at the end. The Protestant method is not so much of a penance. It's more of guilt. It's like a masochistic medicine. You go in, you get flagellated by the pastor, and then you feel better because the message is basically, here's this guy in the Bible who was faithless and an idiot. Don't be like him. And then at the end, it's like, but thank God for Jesus because he forgives us. Right? That's the method of the evangelical message today in any Christian church in Canada, basically, is there's a story in the Bible about a guy who is an idiot. Don't be like him. You're like him sometimes. You know that, aren't you? But thank God we have Jesus. That's how the message ends. And if you want to join Jesus, come and join our church. Right? That gets repeated over and over again. That's what the message is. Am I right? If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, and I'll be happy to hear you. But this long, slow exposition, right? In the Bible times, there was a guy, and he wore sandals. And sandals were these things made of leather. And the leather they got from the animal hide. And then they took the animal hide, and they did this and this and this. You get the idea? You spend 20 minutes talking about something that could take 30 seconds. They wore sandals. They didn't have Nikes in the Bible. They wore sandals. And I've heard preachers use that joke, and they get over that point in 10 seconds. But they don't do that anymore. No, now they got to go. And what they're doing is they're stealing your time. They're stealing your time and wasting it on trivia. And I could go on more about that and with more details and more examples, but I won't. And there is this symbiotic mutual dishonesty between the congregation and the pastor. You notice the bigger the church gets, that the more often that the pastor is put up in lights and the congregation is kept in the dark. You don't see it so much in smaller churches because they don't have the same lighting capability. But as you get up into these larger and larger megachurches, very often they will keep the lights down, dim, low, so the congregation's in the dark and the pastor's up on this stage that is brightly lit. And it's a mutual cooperation. The people in the audience know they're being treated like children. They know that they're being micro managed, if you want to call it that, this exposition of every little detail. And then Jonah went on a ship, and then a ship might have been like this, and it might have been made of wood, and it might have went on the sea, and it might have used sails, and it might have been windy back then. And do you really need to hear that? But they eat that up. They eat that up. This mutual dishonesty between the congregation and the pastor. So who's to blame? Should I be sitting here and bashing pastors and Christian leaders all the time? Partly. But also the congregation is to blame because they allow it. They don't stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, this is all bullshit. That my municipal councilor is corrupt. My local mayor is taking bribes from this corporate entity. They're not talking about that. Oh, we're not allowed to talk about that. Separation of church and state. Shh. You can't talk about anything to do with government. You cannot talk about anything to do with the corporate workplace. You cannot talk about anything to do with public schools. This silencing of truth is extending out from one to the other and back again. There's a silent rule within. If you have a government job, you can't talk about your faith in your government job, if you have any faith at all. Of course not. Unless you want to introduce a alphabet activity or a pride celebration, then that's totally okay. Of course, if you go along with the agenda that's from the top down, then you're fine. But that's not what Christianity is all about. Christianity is about promoting truth, true love. They say, oh, love is love. I'm talking about the love that's described in the Bible, that God loves us and cares about us and wants us to live righteous, holy lives and protect the next generation that's coming up, which is being stolen from us. The next generation are not going to attend Christian churches. Are you kidding me? By then, they'll either all be, I'm not going to say it, but you can do the math. And so, you keep going down in the corporate workplace. And if you're at a company that is, obviously, if you work for the government, cancel. The next step down, you're working at a municipal level, you're working for a public library, you're working for a government-funded organization, a crown corporation of some type, same thing, cancel. You have to keep going down and down and down until you reach a place where there's honesty. It's no surprise that Jesus spent time with fishermen and prostitutes because they're the grunts. They're the ones where you show up on the job site and say, hey, you idiot, pick up that hammer. They're not afraid of offending somebody else. But all these other places, you got to have safe space. And see, the church now has to have, this is a safe space. We want to welcome everybody. And if you're causing division by saying that you don't like what we're teaching, you're canceled. You're kicked out. We don't have any time for that. This is a fast food church here. You come in, you get served, and go out. If you don't like what we're serving, go to the next Big Mac church, right? That's what it's all about. It's insular. It's protecting their own interests, right? They're looking for a core Christian that'll give them everything they want, shut up, not make any waves. This is all they want. But the problem with that is that it doesn't work anymore. Why? Because the arsonists are at the doorstep. That's why. The children are being taken out from under their noses. That's why. The corruption is rampant. That's why. We're not living in a place anymore where the public servants were actually serving the public with integrity, honesty, and honor. Where in a society where the teachers actually cared about the children. As I mentioned in a previous video, you can have 29 teachers that are honest and righteous and feel called to care for the next generation. But it only takes one to bring up the indoctrination, the racism, the perverted ideas. And I don't have to go into detail because you can see them yourself. You either know somebody that has children being exposed to it, or that information is open and available to anybody that wants to see it, to what is being promoted by the public service unions. Read the notes of what they're putting in their regular meetings. You have to be aware. If you want to put your head in the sand and be an ostrich, they will welcome you with open arms, because that's what they're all about. They're like, don't make waves. This is the status quo. This is how we do it. We want to appeal to everybody so that we can draw them in. And then if we kind of through osmosis and just by being all touchy-feely and friendly to them, eventually they'll accept Christ and they'll get baptized and they'll join our church. And that's wonderful. And that happens. And God bless them for that. And they're still doing that. And that's great. And a lot of it is just through these mutual relations of people that are already saved, and they kind of drawing their friends and relatives in and saying, yeah, come, this is a cool place. It's got lots of good programs and lots of nice, friendly people. And that's wonderful. Good. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And we are fast approaching desperate times. Open up your eyes and see what's going on. Oh, but you're paranoid because of all the information you're feeding too much on the internet and all that. Am I paranoid? Maybe. Maybe I have good reason to be paranoid too. Time will tell. Time will tell. That's all I've been able to get through today. I wish I could, go through more because I had a lot more I wanted to talk about. But the fact of the matter remains is that the truth will prevail. As Jesus said, it's like a little bit of yeast put into bread and it gets kneaded all the way through. And that truth is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And truth will prevail. If one thing Christians have a hunger for, it is truth. They can see it, they can smell it, they can taste it, they can almost touch it. Do they get deceived sometimes? Many times they get deceived. Absolutely. Do I get deceived sometimes? Yes, many times. And that is becoming a greater and greater danger with deep fakes and AI and on and so on and so forth. But my fears are well founded. They are well founded. And they are not being addressed. And instead, you have Christian leaders that will cancel any attempt at pushback. Say, hey, what the heck are you talking about? Babylonian God, Ra, this, the ancient, that. Speed it up. Tell me in 10 seconds. They had ancient gods back then. Yes. And then Paul came and said, look, you're wrong. You're worshiping in ignorance. This man came. He taught us what God is like. He healed the sick, opened the eyes of the blind, then he died and rose again. The resurrection. I'm not trying to tell you how to preach. I'm giving you feedback that you're stealing time from your congregation and your lowest common denominator is too low. That I'll forgive. But not the other one. If you're going to waste my time for a second, I'm going to give a response. When the sky is falling down around your ears and you're fiddling while Rome burns, somebody needs to come along and say, hey, the house is on fire and you're up on the roof fiddling a tune, playing your violin. It worked back in the 70s and 80s, but we're not back in the 70s and 80s anymore. You're not Jim Baker. You're not Tammy Faye Baker. That's a whole other series I'm going to talk about. These independents that declare themselves as prophets and lead their own cults and create their own fiefdoms based on a perverted interpretation of the scriptures and say, oh, we have our own kingdom here. We're doing it like this. If you don't like that we're operating as a cult, get out. We don't want you. We only want core Christians here that will dedicate their lives to our cause and what we're doing and the big church we're building and all the money we're going to raise. That's a whole other section. But this mainstream Protestant denominations out there, even though many of them are independents, they're not facing reality. And they don't want to face reality. They have no reason to face reality until they're forced to face reality. And when enough Christians stand up and say, no, we're not going to listen to your bullshit anymore. We want to address the truth. We want a voice in society. Whether that happens to touch on the toes of the government or not, so be it. Not all this separation of church and state mantra that is driven into the minds of people at every turn. Oh, you're talking about Christian nationalism and nation and power and all this. No, a voice standing up for truth. That's all. Get that through your head. Oh, well, we don't like you. We're going to cancel you. We don't like your attitude. You're too abrasive. This is a safe space here for everybody. But I don't think I'm the only one. God bless you. Thank you for watching. I got to cut it. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.